Didn't fall in love loudly. Asterisk. There were no grand gestures, no public promises, no dramatic beginnings. What I fell into was quiet, careful, almost invisible. He loved me in secret, asterisk, and at first, that felt romantic, asterisk. It started with late-night conversations, the kind that made time disappear. He listened in a way that made me feel seen, not just heard, but understood. He remembered small details. My favorite tea. The way I laughed when I was nervous. The things I never told anyone else. And because he knew me so well, I trusted him faster than I should have. Asterisk. We never posted pictures together. Asterisk. He said he was private. I believed him. We never went to places where he might run into people he knew. Asterisk. He said he liked quiet corners. I believed him. He never introduced me to anyone important in his life. He said he liked to protect what mattered. I believed him. Asterisk. That's the danger of secret love. It makes you feel special instead of suspicious. Asterisk. When he held my hand, it was always somewhere no one could see. When he kissed me, it was quick, like he was afraid someone might catch us. And every time I asked why, he smiled and said, "Some things are better when they're just ours." I wanted to be chosen, so I accepted being hidden. Asterisk. He told me he had been hurt before, that relationships complicated his life, that people misunderstood him. I became gentle with him, patient. I learned how to lower my expectations without realizing that love should never require you to shrink. Asterisk. Sometimes, in quiet moments, a thought would cross my mind. If I'm so important, why does no one know about me? Asterisk. But I pushed it away, because questioning him felt like questioning the connection itself. Asterisk. Then came the rules. No calling after a certain hour. No messaging when he didn't respond. Asterisk. No tagging. No checking. No showing up unannounced. Asterisk. He framed them as boundaries. I accepted them as love. The first crack appeared one evening when I saw his phone light up while we were together. He turned it face down immediately. Too quickly. I pretended not to notice, but something shifted inside me. A quiet unease settled in my chest, the kind that doesn't scream but doesn't leave either. I asked him who texted. He said, "Just someone from work." I nodded, and once again, I chose peace over truth, but peace built on silence doesn't last. That night, alone in my room, I replayed every moment we had shared. Every excuse, every delay, every promise that never had a date attached to it. And for the first time, I allowed myself to ask the question I had been avoiding. Asterisk. What if I'm not the only one? The answer didn't come immediately, but it was already on its way. Asterisk. And I didn't know it yet. But loving him in secret was only the beginning of the story, not the betrayal, not the heartbreak, and certainly not the truth. Asterisk. Because he loved me in secret. Asterisk. But I wasn't the only one. After that night, everything changed, not in obvious ways, but in ways that cut slowly, silently, like the wind through a cracked window. I watched him more closely than ever, noticing the little things I had ignored before. The way his eyes lingered too long on his phone. The way he seemed distracted during conversations. The little smiles that didn't reach his eyes when he looked at me. Asterisk. He was careful. Almost too careful, as if he had learned the art of hiding pieces of himself in plain sight. And I couldn't decide if I wanted to confront him or let it slide, because part of me still wanted to believe in the man I fell for, the one who made me feel like I mattered more than anyone else in the world. But another part, the part I hadn't allowed to exist until now, was screaming quietly, "Watch closely. Watch everything." Then came the evening that changed everything. I was waiting for him at our usual spot, a quiet little park bench tucked under an old oak tree. The wind carried the scent of autumn, and the city's distant hum was oddly comforting. I saw him approach, but he wasn't alone. A woman walked beside him, laughing softly. Her hand brushed against his arm in a familiarity I recognized instantly, the kind of touch reserved for intimacy, for comfort, for someone who has a claim on another's heart. My chest tightened. My stomach lurched. My hands shook. I wanted to look away, to disappear, but I couldn't. My eyes were glued to the scene, silently absorbing every detail, every gesture. He turned his head, and for a brief moment, our eyes met. I froze. There was a flicker of recognition in his gaze, a fraction of hesitation, as if he knew I had seen too much. But then he smiled, the same smile he had always reserved for me, and spoke to the woman like nothing was wrong. "Did you enjoy your gay?" he asked softly. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. I wanted to demand answers, but instead, I sat there, paralyzed by the quiet storm of betrayal brewing in my chest. I watched them walk away together, hand in hand, and I realized with cold clarity that the love I thought was mine alone was shared in ways I hadn't imagined. That night, I stayed awake for hours replaying every conversation, every message, every moment of intimacy. I wondered how I had been so blind, how I had convinced myself that the secrecy between us was harmless, even romantic. The truth was heavier than I could carry. And with every thought I felt the weight of the hidden reality pressing down, making it harder to breathe. The next day, I tried to confront him gently. I didn't accuse. I asked. I watched his face closely for the flicker of truth or guilt. He smiled, nodded, and reassured me in the way that manipulators do, calm, measured, convincing. "You're the one I love," he said. "You always have been." But love is not measured by words alone. It is measured by actions, by consistency, by transparency. And when I looked at the subtle ways he shielded me from the truth, I understood. The love I was being offered was incomplete, selective, conditional, and it had come at the cost of my trust. Days passed, and the tension grew. I began to see patterns I had never noticed before: sudden calls, unexplained absences, muted laughter in texts, messages deleted before I could see them. The reality I had built in my mind started to crumble. Every reassurance, every tender word, now felt like part of a carefully constructed illusion. I confronted him again one evening, trying to keep my voice steady, my composure intact. "Is there someone else?" I asked quietly. His eyes darted, his throat tightened, and for a moment, I saw something I hadn't seen before: hesitation. The kind that speaks louder than any confession ever could. He told me there wasn't anyone, that I was imagining things. But I could feel the cracks in his carefully built facade. I could hear the truths he wasn't saying, see the places where honesty was missing, and feel the weight of the secrets he still held. And in that moment, I understood something important. The heart can love, but the mind remembers. The heart can forgive, but the mind will never forget. And sometimes, the very person you trust to protect your heart is the one who shapes the deepest wounds. The weeks that followed were like walking through a fog. I kept seeing him, hearing him, feeling him in moments that should have been mine alone, yet somehow they belonged to someone else too. Every smile, every gentle touch, every whispered word felt tainted now, layered with the knowledge that my place in his world was never exclusive. I found myself questioning every memory, every moment of intimacy. Was it genuine, or carefully crafted for me to believe it was? I started noticing the patterns I had ignored before. The way he would disappear for hours without explanation. The way he avoided eye contact when his phone rang. The subtle tension in his voice when I asked about his day. At first, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe he was tired. Maybe work was stressful. Maybe I was overthinking. But deep down, I knew I wasn't. My instincts were screaming what my heart refused to see. Then came the day I accidentally overheard a conversation, one I was never meant to hear. I had gone to his apartment to drop off a small gift, something thoughtful I had picked out to make him smile. The door was slightly ajar, and voices floated out. Familiar, comfortable voices, laughing quietly, softly, but not for me. I froze. My heart pounded so loudly I thought they would hear it. I pressed myself against the wall, barely breathing. And then I heard it, his laughter. And another voice, female, soft, intimate. My stomach lurched. My hands shook. I didn't want to hear more, but I couldn't move. He was talking to her the way he had always talked to me. The same jokes, the same tones, the same words. And then she said something I will never forget. I can't believe she doesn't know yet. That one line was like a hammer to my chest. My world shifted instantly. The love I had believed was mine alone? A lie. Carefully curated, whispered in shadows, shared between him and someone else. And I had been blind, eager, and trusting. I didn't confront him immediately. I left, silently, quietly, retreating to the safety of my car. I sat there for hours, letting the reality sink in. Every memory now carried a shadow. Every sweet moment, every tender word, every secret smile was now a reminder that I was not the only one. The next morning, I tried to function as if nothing had happened. I went about my day with a practiced smile, my words polite, my tone neutral. But every text, every message, every phone call from him now triggered anxiety. My mind dissected his words, searching for signs of guilt, deception, or confession. I wanted answers, but I knew he would never volunteer them. And then finally I confronted him. I remember sitting across from him in the same cafe where we first met. The smell of coffee and rain-dampened pavement mixed with the tension building between us. I looked him straight in the eyes and asked, "Who is she?" For a moment, he didn't answer. His eyes flickered, and I caught that familiar hesitation. The hesitation that had been there the day I first questioned him. He opened his mouth, then closed it. I waited. The seconds stretched into minutes. I could feel my chest tightening, my mind racing with all the possibilities, all the truths I hadn't been ready to face. Finally he spoke. "She's someone from my past," he said, calm, almost too calm. "It's complicated, but it's nothing now. It's over." But I had learned to read the silences between his words. I had learned that calm was often a mask for guilt. I had learned that explanations meant nothing if actions didn't match. And at that moment, I realized I had been in love with a version of him that existed only when it was convenient. Only when no one else was watching. Asterisk, I left that cafe with a trembling heart and a mind spinning with betrayal. I couldn't cry. Not yet. Not until I was alone. Not until I let the storm of emotions hit without restraint. And when I finally did, when the tears fell freely in my empty apartment, I understood I had not just been deceived. I had been loved selectively. And that kind of love can be more painful than hatred, because it feels like trust betrayed itself. Asterisk, days turned into weeks. And I learned the truths in pieces, glimpses I wasn't supposed to see. Messages I accidentally intercepted, phone calls I overheard. And each time the pain deepened. It wasn't just that he had loved someone else. It was that he had done it quietly, secretly, while letting me believe I was the one. Asterisk, and yet, even with all the heartbreak, a part of me couldn't let go. That part still hoped he would explain, still hoped he would show remorse, still hoped that the man I thought I knew could somehow be real. Asterisk, but hope, I realized, can be a dangerous thing when it's fed by lies. Asterisk, weeks passed, but the ache inside me didn't fade. It grew sharper with every lie I uncovered. Every secret he kept, every gentle word he had whispered in private, now rang hollow. I realized that what I had called love was something else entirely, an illusion. Carefully curated, designed to keep me devoted while hiding the truth. Asterisk, one evening, I decided I couldn't live in uncertainty any longer. I arranged to meet him at the same quiet cafe where we had shared so many stolen moments. The rain was soft, tapping against the windows, and inside, the warm light did nothing to ease the storm that raged within me. I sat across from him, trying to steady my trembling hands, trying to find the courage to speak words I had rehearsed 1,000 times in my head. Asterisk, why? I asked simply, my voice barely above a whisper. Why me, if you were never really mine? Asterisk, he looked down, his fingers tapping nervously against his coffee cup. For the first time, I saw hesitation, uncertainty, maybe even shame. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. The silence between us was deafening. It spoke louder than any explanation ever could. Asterisk, finally he sighed. I didn't mean for it to happen like this, he said. I loved you, but I never stopped caring about her. I thought I could manage both. I thought I could give you what you deserved without losing the other part of my life. I was wrong. Asterisk, I felt the words cut me open, but deeper than the betrayal was the relief of finally hearing the truth. There was no excuse, no hidden reason that would make this better. Just honesty, painful and raw. Asterisk, I left that day knowing two things, that I had loved deeply, and that love alone isn't enough when trust has been broken. I realized, no matter how tender his whispers, how soft his gaze, the foundation had always been flawed. And when the foundation crumbles, no amount of care can rebuild it. Asterisk, days turned into months. I learned to live with the memories, with the questions that would never be answered. I allowed myself to grieve the version of love I had believed in, a love that existed in secret, but not exclusively for me. And slowly, I began to notice the strength growing inside me. The strength to recognize my worth. The strength to know that I deserved honesty, not selective affection. Asterisk, eventually, I confronted the reality I had been avoiding. I was not a secret to be shared. I was a person worthy of full, unreserved love. And that realization became my liberation. I no longer waited for messages, for apologies, or for explanations. I no longer hoped for a love that was half shared, half hidden. Asterisk, looking back now, I can see how carefully he had controlled the story. How each smile, each word, each tender moment had been designed to keep me invested while keeping the truth at bay. But the story isn't about him anymore. The story is about me, the woman who learned to listen to her instincts, to trust her heart, and to step away from love that was incomplete. In the end, the betrayal that had cut so deeply became a mirror. It reflected my resilience, my courage, and my capacity to choose myself above all else. The secret love that once seemed enchanting had revealed itself as a lesson in strength. And though the heartbreak lingered, I knew I would never again allow myself to be someone's hidden treasure, someone's quiet indulgence. I walked away from that chapter of my life quietly, without fanfare, without anger. Just with a heart that had been broken. Yes, but also one that had learned, finally, to be whole again. Because in the silence left behind by secrets, I discovered the voice I had been too afraid to hear, my own.